Hello, Internet! So this video is going to be about my Tome Topple TBR. There is another Tome Topple in August. It started today on August 4th, and it will continue until August 17th. And I just want to tell you the books that I chose. Most of the books I've chose fit into at least one of the challenges given for this readathon. I think the only challenge I didn't complete was the buddy read one. If you want to know what the challenges are, I'm putting it in the description box. I don't want to list them. But yeah, so let's talk about my TBR. First, we have Draw the Line by Lauren Lynn. This is about a teenage boy, and he lives in Texas, and all he really cares about is drawing his comic books. He wants to be a comic book artist. He wants to get into graphic novels, that sort of thing. But of course that's not so welcoming because people don't like the arts, and I'm guessing because he's in Texas maybe they'll be more focused on sports or something like that, so he's gonna have a hard time there. He also happens to be gay, so there's a lot of struggles with his homosexuality and I guess acceptance going on there and that sort of thing. So this one sounds interesting, plus it has pictures in it. It has his little comics. So I want to see what's going on with his comics. Like, where does his imagination lead him? Next, we have Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I've only read maybe the first chapter in this. I tried starting it right after I read Six of Crows, but then I was like too scared, so I chickened out, and I was like, no, I don't want to see what happens. I don't want to know if like you do something that I don't like, because what I've seen with Leigh Bardugo is I believe she is a fabulous writer, but she does do a lot of things that kind of bother me. Like, I appreciate that she does it. She like has writing styles and does like writing little quirks and stuff that like normally would get on my nerves, or like I normally get nervous about. And while I'm still uncomfortable with some of like the plot points and ideas she uses, she does it so well that like I can't fault her, because I'm like, man, I wish it had worked out differently, but the story is just so good the way that you've written it. I couldn't even think of it not doing that thing that makes me slightly uncomfortable. So like I read like the first chapter and then I was like, no, I don't want to know what happens. I don't want to know what happens. So I figured I'll add it to this because I really do want to know what happens. I just don't want to see any of my faves get hurt, which is bound to happen. So, you know. Next we have Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is about two teenagers who are like in this sci-fi world that's run by big corporations, and now these two corporations are like having a corporation battle sort of ideal and are like screwing over the world. It kind of reminds me of that television show Black Matter, if you have ever watched that, and kind of what they did with season 2 when they talk more about the corporations and how like the corporations control the world. So like I like that show, so I want to see what they do with that concept. It has again like a lot of like little notes and things like this, because apparently it's all done through like interviews and like different information that they've collected and little messages back and forth of them trying to figure out what's going on with these corporations. Next we have The Death and Life of Zebulon Flinch, Volume 1, Edge of an Empire by Daniel Krass. I don't really know what this one's about, and if I am to be honest, which I usually am, always, this is probably the scariest one to me because I don't know what it's really about. It just says 17-year-old boy, he one day becomes immortal, and he's lived through a bunch of wars and a lot of hard times that we've seen historically, and it's just like his life, and I'm not quite sure what turn it's gonna take. Like, is it gonna focus on like him living in these times and like the kind of self-depression that you get when you just continue on while everyone else around you dies? Like, is it going to focus on that, or is it going to focus on how he became immortal, or like what's going to go on, or is there going to be like some big bad that he has to face, and that's what it's going to focus on? Like, what's the adventure here? What's the real plot? What kind of world are we living in? Like, all of that. And I know most people are uncomfortable with spoilers and they don't like synopsises and summaries and stuff, and while I readily admit I cannot read a synopsis to save my life because I always read it wrong and then assume probably like 50 wrong things and make up my own story of what the story should be. I like having that. I like being able to at least assume where the story is going to go. And if you don't do anything that I thought you would do, that's perfectly okay. But I like to at least have something in mind that I can look forward to that will motivate me to get through the story. Otherwise, like, I start getting anxious and I'm like, when's something going to happen? Like, what's going on? Like what's happening? Like, it makes me anxious not to have some sort of idea of what is going on. So I'm probably going to save this one for last, just so that if like I come too overwhelmed with like me not knowing something, I don't worry that I'm like holding up the rest of my Tome Topple goals. The last one we have The Sculptor by Scott M. McCloud, and since today was the first day of Tome Topple, I actually already finished this one. This is fulfills the graphic novel requirement. It was fantastic. I really love like the blue work that they do. This book is about a guy. He's a sculptor. He comes from a family of artists. He just wants to sculpt. He wants to make art. He wants to make a name for himself, but some bad stuff has happened to him in the past, and now he's at a really, really dark point in his career. He's not quite sure what he's going to do. So he ends up meeting Death, and he makes a deal with him, and he's given 200 days after he makes a deal that allows him to sculpt anything with his hands. So like, no matter what the material is, it's like putty in his hand, and he can sculpt it so easily without the use of tools. So now in this 200 days, he wants to try to make a name for himself. He wants to become immortal through his work, and it just talks about like a lot of struggles that go on with art, with go on with depression, with go on with you trying to succeed in life, with having to deal with the fact that you can't be immortal, which is funny since I'm going to be reading a book about a mortal kid. So it like this was just so fantastic. Slightly uplifting, slightly not. I'm pretty much giving you my review of this. Anyway, this was also a book on my TBR, one that I happened to already finish on the first day of Tome Topple. So there. I was very excited to be participating in Tome Topple because it just seemed like such a fun concept to like go through all of your largest books and then read them all at the same time and try to see how many you can get through, and all those books that seem daunting. And I thought it was just a lot of fun, while also laughing to myself, because to me big books in themselves aren't daunting. I usually don't think of a page limit. Sometimes if like you say like 1,000 pages, like I'll be like, what? But like if it looks right, if the aesthetics and sizing of the book is proper, I won't think about a page limit. Like, I honestly did not know that Six of Crows was even more than 500 pages. Like, I read Carry On in like a day, and that is over 500 pages, I believe. Like, the page number doesn't affect my mind for how big or how long a book is. I like longer books. I love being invested in stories. But since we're talking about like kind of books that scare us, and that's what the whole like goal of this readathon is to get past those scary books, there is one type of book that really does terrify me. Other than books that I really don't know what's going to happen and those terrify me. I like having control. So, but books and tomes that really terrify me are ones like this one right here. So let me grab it. So this is Evil Genius by Catherine Jinks. I did a book opinion on this a while back. But this one, I think this is like, this is a 500-page book. Now, you might think, oh no, it's harmless, right? Like, look at it, it's so small and cute. But that's exactly why I'm scared of it. As a short person, I understand you must fear short people. Like, you can't just get away with small things and be like, oh, it's gonna be small and cute and it won't harm you. No, that's exactly why it's so dangerous. So like books that are like this, where they're small but really, really thick, and then like, can you see that? You can't even see that. Like, see how small that print is? These books terrify me. They feel like they're never going to end. So I hate mass market printings because, like, no! Give me a bigger font size. Print like 20 more pages. I don't care. I'm very uncomfortable with this size. This size of book, like this little teeny size with this many pages, it makes me super uncomfortable and makes me super scared to read. I happened to be on vacation when I read this, and this was one of the only books I had, which is kind of how I forced myself to read it. Really good book, but that's the only way I would have read it, because I really don't like the size of this. It scares me. The print's too small. It just, not a fan. So, like, if we want to talk about tomes that I'm scared to read, like tomes I put off reading because, like, they're too long, if it comes in this size, it will take me a decade and a half to read it. Don't print so many pages in this size. You gotta use such small print. Such small print. It's pure evil. Don't do that to me. Those are all the books that I'm going to have on my TBR for this Tome Topple. Since I did so well and completed one book and I'm like starting another and it's only the first day, I might be like, being a little overconfident, but I feel like I'll get this down packed and I'll be done before everyone else. And this is not a competition, I understand, but it is my mind and I'm gonna win, okay? I'm gonna be done. And don't worry about me, I'm naturally a fast reader, so it's not like I'm not enjoying this story or whatever. You people out there who are gonna claim stupidness like that, I just read fast. It's natural for me. So, list down below any books that make you super uncomfortable for like whatever reason. Is it because they're really small? Is it because like they're really fat? Do page numbers scare you? Is that what it is? Like, page numbers have never scared me, but like certain bindings of books, those terrify me to no end. Click all the bunnies down below if you like what you see here and you want to continue to see more. Goodbye, internet.